Hell yeah, you listen to the Power Movement.
Welcome to another episode of the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and I want to wish all the Gentiles out there a Merry Christmas, all the Jews a Happy Hanukkah, and everybody else a happy whatever you celebrate. It is now full-on winter. Hopefully everybody's getting snow at their resorts, and they're ready for a feel-good podcast. And when I say a feel-good podcast this Christmas, I mean we have Roy Tuscany on the podcast. And Roy's story, well, it's not all feel-good, as it's a roller coaster of a story. We will take you through Roy's aspiring ski days to his tragic accident to the life that he had to put back together and create an amazing foundation in the High Fives Foundation. It's very interesting, and he's a really awesome guy. Before we do any of that, I need to thank all of you for listening this first year. This is the last episode of Season 1, and the podcast has grown significantly, and I thank you for listening and telling your friends and sharing my posts. Hopefully following me on Instagram at The Powell Movement and all that other good stuff. Before we get into the podcast, I need to thank my sponsors. They are evo.com, diecutstickers.com, Sierra at Tahoe Resort, Rescue Water, and Unofficial Networks. Please support them as they support me. And now, let's talk to our Christmas episode. Roy Tuscany. So Roy, you're in town for the PTA auction, which is awesome. We crushed it last night for the Alki Elementary School, and my wife is on the auction committee. And in terms of auctions, I do the McConkey every year with you in Squaw Valley, and that's how we met, and we've become good friends over the years. And I would say this is on the same level. They didn't fly people in from France to dance or anything like that, but they definitely paid attention to detail, and it was a pretty awesome night. And sharing why you're in town, but really I want to find out what you've been up to lately. So what's the past 6 months been for Roy Tuscany?
Wow, the last 6 months have been a pretty good whirlwind of travel, good deeds, and obviously a lot of high fives. The foundation has been doing great, myself moving forward a lot in my life, and I actually just bought a house the other day, and the last week I've been in the cities of Seattle, Boston, and Dallas. So a lot of travel, a lot of cool things going on, and it just seems like my personal and professional life are both tracking in a really great direction right now.
All right, well, I'm going to dive into your personal life real quick. I hear you bought a house, and I don't think you bought it outright by yourself. I think you have someone that you're buying it with. Is that correct?
I also recently got engaged, so me and my fiance, Bailey, we just became first-time homeowners in the beautiful city of Reno, Nevada.
How far from the Cal Neva?
From the Cal Neva, we're probably about 8 or 9 miles. We're currently living right in the middle of Reno. You know, the Cal Neva, the Silver Legacy. Our backyard has the National Bowling Museum. Not too many people can say my backyard has the National Bowling Museum in it.
No. And not too many people can say that they've been divorced and engaged in how many months is the spread? I was going to guess like 14, but I could be wrong.
No, it's less than that. You know, I made a big life change, and meeting Bailey was a big part of it.
When did you meet Bailey?
You know, I met her and started hanging out with her on New Year's Eve of this year.
No, but when did you first meet Bailey?
I met her a long time ago. I met her through her mom, actually.
Okay, so like in what year did you meet Bailey?
I don't know, probably 2009, 10, somewhere around there.
How old was Bailey when you met her?
That's a good one, Mike. She was all of 16 years old then.
So you meet Bailey at a young age, and it's crazy that you meet her as a minor and you guys fall in love when she's an adult, which is great, because if it's the other way around, we'd have some problems with that. But we don't have to have problems with that, Roy, because you guys are engaged now and it's totally legal. She is 24.
She'll be turning 24 in December.
And you'll be turning 47.
No, I'm not in your age bracket quite yet. So
Good one.
Let's go down a little bit. Just 36 years old right now.
When's the wedding?
Wedding is July 7th at Squaw Valley.
And is the public invited?
Friends of the public are.
Okay, so you can just show up if you know Roy and you're friends of the public. You can be at his wedding. Probably not going to get served food. There's a cash bar, and you make donations to the High Fives Foundation when you go in. Although that is not the case. No one's going to be going to your wedding. But let's find out about your history. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Burlington, Vermont, and raised in Waterbury, Vermont. The epicenter of what is now currently the Vermont beer craze. Where the Alchemist is located is what kind of Waterbury is known for now. But when I grew up, it was all known for being the home of Ben and Jerry's.
Parents together, divorced, brothers, sisters. How about that?
I got no brothers, no sisters, only child. My parents Got divorced later in life. My dad has since remarried, and I have gotten two stepsisters. So finally having a little bit larger family than what I was used to growing up.
Growing up as an only child, what did you do? Did you play sports? Did your parents give you like every opportunity to do everything possible because they only had you to love, or how was that?
You know, growing up as a child in Vermont was all about adventure outside, a lot of participation in sports, and a lot of cool opportunities that my family put in front of me, from traveling to Montreal to Washington, D.C. to Boston, and really seeing a bunch of the historic birthplaces of North America. So growing up was, a lot about like learning. My parents, one was a teacher, my mom, and then my dad was an engineer. So, intelligence was something that they passed on to me that, really strived me to always want to be learning. And I think that's something that I, as a child, and especially an only child, I spent a lot of time learning.
Well, the intelligence part is debatable, but you have a lot of time as an only child. Did you play any sports? Like team sports?
Yeah, I loved baseball. Baseball was a huge part of my life growing up. I thought I was going to become a professional baseball player, but I had way too shy of the talent needed for that. Cross-country running was a big thing. And, I had a coach while running by the name of John Kerrigan that really set me up to be successful in life. It really taught not just myself, but the other teammates that, hard work really pays off. So cross-country at a big point of my life really set a lot of my life values that I have. And then skiing. Was on the high school ski team, participated on the local mountain freestyle team. Skiing was my life, and, baseball and running kind of just supplemented the time when I wasn't skiing.
So how did you get into skiing? Did your mom and dad ski a lot?
No, neither of them. No, not anyone in my family. When I was in third grade, the local elementary school in Waterbury had an after-school ski program on Wednesday nights. You got to go up with the school cafeteria kitchen chef. Tim Maher was his name, and he was this cool dude, ski bum, that was also the chef of the school. And so he put together an after-school ski program up at Bolton Valley, where the Delorier brothers were from. And I remember my first time going skiing was, something that not only made me love the sport, but also at the same time really understand the importance of learning.
Roy, we went on a little trip earlier. Where'd we go?
We went to Evo, the store in downtown Seattle.
First time there for you, right?
First time there, longtime shopper on the online platform, and really wanted to see what the brick and mortar was all about.
And what were the first things you said to me when we walked in there?
I said, I did not know ski businesses could be successful. That place was packed.
And what did you think of like the ski wall and the things you saw?
I saw more skis there than I have seen in a long time. The whole vibe, the layout, the look, the product, everything they had was what you want to see as a consumer. Each item was like, I'll buy that. And to see that many people engaged into the sport really shows that Evo knows what they're doing.
Yeah, there must have been like 50 people in there. I mean, it's a huge store, but it was crazy. So I'm going to talk about Evo now. They are located in Seattle, Denver, and Portland. They have retail locations, and it is the best shopping experience you're ever going to find. And they also have an amazing website. And on the site right now, you can get their resolution sale. That's right, your New Year's resolution sales happening now, up to 30 to 60% off hard goods at Evo. You can also use your Powell Movement code. Yes, you get an additional 10% off just by listening to the Powell Movement. When you check out at Evo, enter the code TPM10 and you'll get 10% off that order. And Evo also offers a no-hassle return policy, free shipping on orders over $50 or more, and the best shopping experience out there. So that's my sponsor, Evo. You ever work with die-cut stickers?
Die-cut stickers, the name says it all. There's not a better sticker company in the world than diecutstickers.com.
And they don't just make die-cut stickers. They make every kind of sticker you could possibly want. And the guys over there, Daniel and EJ, they've been at it for 15 years. They've opened a state-of-the-art facility that's 12,000 square feet. We should have gone there while you were in town because this place is spectacular. All brand new machines, the best stickers, the best quality in the world. And when people place their first order, they can use the code DCS15 and they're going to get 10% off their first order.
Another cool thing about die cut, though, is that for every 5,000 die cut stickers that they sell, they donate $5,000 to High Fives Foundation.
No way.
Yes, they do.
See, they should tell me these things so I can say them in podcasts, but you already did it. So that's great. So that's die cut stickers. They are awesome. And we were pretty much you were skiing, and skiing's a big part of your life. Are you one of those kids that's going to every premiere and putting posters on your wall? And if you are, who are the skiers that are really influencing you?
I was that kid going to every premiere, making sure that I had new gear before the premiere so I could wear it to the premiere, because obviously you want to have the new gear at the premieres. For me, it was all about the new Canadian Air Force and Shane McConkey. Those individuals from Canada, Mike Douglas, JF Cousin, JP Auclair, Vincent Dorian, Mark McDonnell, Shane Zox, Mike Atkinson, that whole crew, the crew that really evolved into the staff at High North, those were the guys that I just thought everything skiing was about. What they did from style, the way that they represented their sponsors, the gear they had, the lifestyle. Those guys were the real deal.
Did you ever go to any of those summer camps?
I did. I went to SMS, actually, across the glacier, a couple lanes over, because I was still competing moguls. So moguls were a big part of my life. But then as SMS started to evolve, they then had SMS Freeride that then evolved into Momentum. That mogul program started to turn into Freeride. And by the time that I kind of got into Freeride, actually High North kind of went away.
At the time, did you have pictures of mogul skiers on your wall, or did you have pictures of like the new Canadian Air Force on your wall?
I kind of had both. I had this ginormous signed poster by Johnny Mosley, and then I just had cutouts from Freeze magazine of every single person from the Canadian Air Force. That iconic, JP backflip mute grab, the Vincent Dorian like taking off switch, the Mike Douglas Misty Sevens, and then JF Cousin doing things in the half pipe way before anybody was doing, flat spins and a lot of different rotations using the vert of the wall to position himself different in the air, which really made JF stand out above and beyond everybody within the half pipe.
So you are fully engaged in skiing. What kind of kid are you in high school? I mean, if you look at the different stereotypes, where does Roy fit in? Are you cool? Are you a nerd? What are you?
I don't know. I think like I was like a kid that everybody knew, but I was definitely not like popular. I kind of had a very piss poor attitude when it came to just like not getting my way, which probably came from being an only child a little bit. But, I really stayed close with my buddies that I skied with. I had 3 friends that I skied with all the time: Andrew Woods, Bruce Hyde, and Casey Ryan. That was our crew, and that's kind of who I hung out with.
And did you do well in school?
I did really well in school. With my dad being an engineer, my mom being a teacher, I had some pretty high expectations set on myself. And I had a path. I wanted to be an engineer. I thought that's the direction. Math came easy to me at a young age. And from that, it just kind of set me up for what I thought was my path in life.
Did you party at all in high school? Or were you purely focused on like the skiing, and were you traveling for skiing when you were in high school and going like contest to contest on the weekends? And did you have the dream of being a pro skier while you're in high school?
I did. And, a lot of my winter was spent traveling around on the Eastern Mogul series. But the first time I ever partied, our high school cross-country team had won the state championship. So all the seniors were throwing a party up at one of the houses. And me, not really knowing anything, I was just turned 16. I was like, cool, I'm going to go to my first party. Had to tell all these different fabrications of lies to my parents. Ended up going to the party and trying to be the cool kid. I ordered a 6-pack, paid my buddy $20 for a 6-pack of hard cider. And it shows up, and I have no clue. It tastes just like cider from the local Cold Hollow cider mill in Waterbury. So within 15 minutes, I have 5 of these down. And I am now just completely drunk. I have no idea how to operate in this mind state. And so me, being an idiot 16-year-old, decides, let's go to the store. End up going to the store, to the local Exxon, ordering a bunch of fryer food, eating it on the way home, and I get pulled over because...
You're driving?
No, my friend's driving, who is sober. He didn't drink or didn't party in high school, so he drove us around. But I was in the passenger seat, and there's just, 6 of us in a car. Everybody but the driver's drunk. We get pulled over by the state police, who ends up being the son of our librarian, so definitely knew who we were. And we get pulled over, handcuffed on the side of the road, take breathalyzers, everybody blows. Who could blow the highest was kind of the joke. And when I get picked up by the cop, I puke all over the cop's shoes. The cop literally is just disgusted with me. But being from a small town, he didn't arrest us. He just, made us understand the wrong. And then from there, he actually drove us home. He dropped me off at my parents' house. And I was so happy I gave the cop a hug. And that ended up getting back to everybody at high school that I hugged a cop. And that whole thing about me talking about being popular, really, I was popular for a big blunt of a joke, for puking on cops' feet, giving them a hug, and getting arrested the first time I ever drank.
So when anybody's pointing out who Roy is, they're like, oh, yeah, that's that guy who puked on the cop and then hugged him.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, awesome. 16-year-old, let me tell you.
Yeah, you have to be pretty proud of yourself, and it's got to be great for your self-esteem.
Yes.
The dream of becoming a pro skier, does that exist for you at that point?
It really does. Obviously the way skiing was changing at the time, the invention of the 1080, these, new icons showing up in the sport really made me believe that I was in a really good time frame with a good set of skills that could probably progress his way into, that lifestyle. And when I got done high school and into college, I spent all my time, every single weekend at college was off to the next mountain.
You end up going to what, University of New Hampshire?
I did. I went to UNH my freshman year. And at that time, Budweiser was doing this amazing tour with the American Ski Corporation. They had two events, actually. They had the Budweiser Aerial Assault, and then they had the Budweiser Big Air Tour, which toured around to every single resort. The Aerial Assault would come the weekend before, and then the next weekend, they would invite local pros from the ASC mountains to come hit that jump. And there was anywhere from $1,000 to a $10,000 cash purse at these events. So each mountain got to nominate two athletes to participate, ski and snowboard. And I was lucky enough to be one of the two athletes from Sugarbush, Vermont. And I toured around that, my first couple of years of college, just competing on this and trying to come home with a purse of cash.
So what kind of kid are you at that point? Because you're not that popular in high school, or you're kind of a joke at some points in high school. And then you get to be a sponsored kid who's got to feel, I won't say feel entitled, but you're getting product before. I'm sure you're getting product. You probably have some people giving you stuff, and you're going on these tours, and you're probably treated a little special because you're the ones who get to hit the jump and the other people aren't, because you're the athletes in this situation. Are you like a cocky kid? Like, who's Roy Tuscany then? Because I'm sure you've had a life-altering injury. A lot of people who have life-altering injuries change their outlook on life and people and who they are. But before you had that, what kind of person were you?
Douchebag, I think, is the definition. 2 earrings, frosted or trying to frost my hair, but obviously failing because I have black hair and it just turned my hair all orange. Really loud, not really caring about others around you. Mostly just like, this is me. What about me? Hi, me. I look back and I just like shake my head. But obviously, like you mentioned, having a life-altering injury, coming from the sport that I love really did change my outlook. But, during that time, I don't know or why people would want to hang out with someone like that, because my attitude and entitlement did not match my skill set that I had on skis. Like, I was good, but I wasn't great, or I wasn't one of the best. I was like a, top 90%. I wasn't the top 100% in the sport, but I acted like I was 110%. And that's just not what you need or not what you want to kind of be liked within that community, to the point where, you really feel like you're doing something for the community. You're just being a part of it at that point.
This is all through college, I would think. And do you find partying in college and realize that it's attainable whenever you want to do it? And you find girls as well, and they're skiing. And you transferred to University of Vermont, right?
Correct. After my freshman year at UNH, I was driving so much, and, it was such not a point to be able to travel to all the different resorts. So I decided to relocate up to Burlington, Vermont, which was really kind of a central hub of all the areas I was going to. And Burlington is just, so much more fun. But again, back to that getting kind of goofed on. My first weekend at UNH, I was at a party. I was outside, and this individual came up. I was drunk. Like, I was going shot for shot with a coxswain from a crew team, a little short guy. And I just figured, like, I can easily drink more than you.
I don't even know what a coxswain is, but it sounds dirty.
So crew, like the boats that row, you race, with a little guy in the front that's chanting like the call, so they know like the cadence that they're supposed to be rowing at. He's called a coxswain.
Is there a skull coxswain?
Exactly. But your coxswain, you want him to be tiny. You don't want much weight because it's the front of the boat. The smaller the individual, the better the coxswain. So there's this little dude going shot for shot. I once again drink too much. I go outside to puke. And while I'm puking, an individual says, "You're coming with me." I turn around, say, "No, I'm not." I push him. Next thing I know, I'm on the ground, hogtied. And then I'm in jail in the Dover State Prison.
That sucks. So you go to jail. You have to spend the night there?
Yeah. And oh my God. I spend the night in...
Do you cry?
Yeah, I cried, man. I didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be there either,
because it was the first weekend of college, so the normal drink tank, or whatever you want to call it, that the university had was filled. So by the time that I had gotten arrested or whatever, they had said, well, we're full. We're going to start sending people to the Dover State Prison.
Man.
So I was in the clank. Like, I was in a mass cell. They took the shoelaces from my shoe. They took my belt. All I had were pants and a shirt on. But the funniest part is while I'm in there, in the left corner and in the other corner of the jail cell, there's probably about 15 guys in there. And on each corner, there's these two guys in full tuxedos with this brown mace all over them, this like brown residue all over them. And it's the residue from mace. And so as the night goes on, the story starts to come out of why these guys are in there. Turns out the guy in the left corner is the groom. The guy in the other corner is the best man. While at their wedding, finds out the best man has been having extra affairs with the now wife of the groom. They then find out at the wedding. They start beating the crap out of each other.
After the vows or before?
After the vows, during the after party.
Okay.
The groom and the best man are fighting. The wife, she comes out all upset, but she's so drunk. She passes out. So then they call the paramedics in. The paramedics show up. They start taking her away. Well, now the best man and the groom are like, you can't take my lady away. So they beat the living crap out of the entire emergency staff, all the ambulance people. So then the cops come in. And the cops are trying to alleviate it. There's now new paramedics coming in because this woman's got to get rushed away because she's passed out. By the end of everything said and done, it was like 16 cops and like 16 paramedics took down these two guys. The guys are covered in mace and they're just in the corner. And the groom is still saying like, I got to get out by 6 so I can go on my honeymoon. I mean, let me tell you, just not the normal first experience of college.
You start college as bad as you can in terms of social life. You eventually leave there and you go to University of Vermont. You want to be closer to, I guess, better mountains, or why do you, I mean, it doesn't really matter why you left. Let's say you didn't like it in the University of New Hampshire. You went to a different school. Skiing's still a priority. You're still traveling around. How's Vermont?
It was great. I met this great group of friends there that, weren't skiers. They were just, that wasn't their life, but it was a great people for me to meet at UVM and really become good friends with. But, going to UVM just gave me access to a better schedule that allowed me to ski. I mean, I only had classes on Tuesday and Thursdays and Wednesday afternoon. So I would literally ski Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday mornings. And that's a pretty good lifestyle while going to school and getting an education.
Were your parents floating you money at this point?
I mean, I was lucky. My parents had set up a college fund to allow me to go to college. And then my work in the summer paid for my rent and all those different aspects throughout the year. But I only had to focus on school and skiing. I mean, that's kind of a dream.
And you graduate with a degree in structural or mechanical engineering?
I got a degree in mechanical engineering. And then because you take so many math classes, you also get a minor in mathematics.
What do you do with that degree? Immediately upon graduating college, what does Roy Tuscany do?
I move out west. And
do you get arrested?
No. After that Dover one, that was a big enough lesson. That show like scared straight. Like I was really scared straight after that. That was an experience that, obviously I can still vividly tell the entire night that really had an impact on my life. When I moved out west after college, my entire focus was, okay, let's ski for 2 years as a coach at the Sugar Bowl Academy. And then at the end of that, let's find a real job using that degree and seeing what you can do.
How did you see yourself getting to be a legitimate professional? Because, I mean, at that point, there's a lot more professional skiers than when you had the dream when you were in high school. I mean, you probably at some point have to assess your ability. And is this a switch 1080 days?
So this is 2004, 2005 is that kind of timeline where I'm at. So yeah, my focus now was, learning all these tricks back east and all the terrain parks was, okay, you're a great skier. Let's start taking the tricks that you know and bringing them into the mountain landscape that is Tahoe. Trying to do backflips, 360s, sevens, Misty sevens, stuff like that off of natural features. And that was where I think the sport was starting to take off from them. There was a big terrain park surge from, the late 90s into those early 2000s. And then it really started to be about, well, how can you do these in the natural landscape of the mountains? So my focus was coaching all mornings, then on the weekends, and then the afternoons were free for me to ski all over Tahoe.
When you move out there, I mean, the mountains have to be mind-blowing compared to what you've experienced on the East Coast. How long did it take you to adjust to the terrain and the snow?
It really hit me the month of December in 2004. The Tahoe area got 16 feet in 8 days. I didn't even understand what putting chains on or chain control or why the mountain wasn't opening. I was first one at the mountain. I didn't even know what avalanche control was. I obviously could tell that they were bombing the mountain from the sounds, but it wasn't anything that I truly understood the scope of the work that those individuals were doing to open the mountain, putting their lives on the line to allow people like myself and the general public to go out and get some of the best snow in the world. So it was a really big, eye opener, because during that time period, literally it was wake up, shovel, go to work, come home, shovel, go to bed.
Snow maintenance is part of life in these communities. I mean, anyone I talk to on trips, it's like that is an hour in the morning at least and an hour at night at least. You have to shovel or you're screwed.
If you don't, you'll get the berm, and you don't want a berm. Once a berm forms, that's the end of it. That berm will ruin your life. And that's just this like wall that creates like right at the end of your driveway that is just this combination of, you might as well just call it like snow concrete. And it creates it so that if you don't maintain it, you'll never get away with it. And then you've got this nasty hump going into your driveway all the time.
That's just a part of life out there. So the mountains, way steeper, way more challenging terrain. It's not like you went to like a baby mountain first. You went straight to Tahoe and some really challenging terrain. Now it's time to jump into my final sponsors. And the first is Rescue Water. And Rescue Water is all about proactive recovery. What does that mean to you? Well, think of it like this. If you're really tired, you skip the coffee and you grab an energy drink. And if you really need to hydrate, like when you're working out, going out, or getting out there, you skip the sports drink and drink a cold Rescue Water. It replaces electrolytes much better than your traditional sports drink. And I drink it before bed to stay hangover free. And it really works. Head over to rescuewater.com for a special holiday offer. They're going to give you 20% off a 12-pack case when you enter the code RESQWATERTPM. In caps or lowercase, it doesn't matter. Rescue Water is available on Amazon and Amazon Prime, and you can find out more at resqwater.com or follow them on Instagram at resqwater. My final sponsor is Sierra at Tahoe, and they are the only Tahoe resort that is certified unserious, and they deliver an amazing value. On top of that, the Sierra crew rearranges the trees in their gladed areas nightly to keep the runs fresh. They're the only resort in Tahoe doing this. Season passes are on sale now and have been ergonomically designed to fit in your pocket, and every pass comes with a free photo shoot. If you're a day ticket kind of person, the lift tickets are hand printed with the aid of a printer. The only thing you're not going to find at Sierra at Tahoe are Starbucks and long lift lines. If you live in the Tahoe area or you're planning a trip to Tahoe, head over to sierratahoe.com for more information. Those are my sponsors. Now let's get back to the podcast. I don't know what year this is, but you go to Mammoth for a photo shoot with your team, and then you go back a couple weeks later or a week later with your coaches for some kind of coaches retreat and have really what is the defining day of your life in terms of who you are now. Why don't you walk us through that day and what happens throughout that whole thing?
So April 29th, 2006, what I call my Alive Day. 2 weeks prior to that, I was down there with a bunch of the kids that I was coaching from Sugar Bowl at Mammoth in the Unbound Terrain Park. And there was this step-up feature, about 100-foot long step-up. We went down there, sessioned it. The kids did amazing. Myself and the other coach, we had an incredible time on it. 2 weeks later, I knew I was coming back down for the end of the year coaches retreat for the Sugar Bowl Academy. And when I got down there, just first thing in the morning, I was like, I got to go hit this. I knew I was going to be skiing with a bunch of coaches that weren't going to want to be in the terrain park. I had thought about that jump so much since hitting it because it was just that natural feel, that natural flow that you get into in that moment of, just pure ecstasy that you would feel from this jump. So 2 weeks later, I was in a van with a bunch of other coaches. They were all talking about going into the lodge. And I got this other coach to go up the lift with me. I'm like, let's go in the terrain park. He's like, I don't go in there. I'm a race coach. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go in there. I'll see you at the bottom. So went in the terrain park. Once again, that cocky side that I talked about, during my early years of competing on the Budweiser Tour.
Do you still have frosted tips?
No, not frosted tip, but I got double earrings, Mike. I got earrings in both ears because that's a cool look. Big hoops, And, no helmet on that day, just like looking like the person that I was at that time. And I went to the top of the terrain park and just decided, let's start from here. I had a new pair of skis on that were a little bit wider, had a fresh coat of wax on them. It was early in the morning. The snow was hard. And when I ended up hitting that jump, the second that my skis left the takeoff, I knew instantaneously that I had more speed than I had ever had going off a jump before.
How far do you overshoot it by?
The jump was about 100 feet, and I ended up going about 100. Later in life, I met some ski patrollers that were actually on the scene that day and that actually had to do a big investigation and kind of found out the facts of the jump. So from the takeoff to the bottom of the landing was 100 feet. I ended up going 130 feet, so 30 feet past the bottom of the landing. And I also came down from about 30 feet in the air. So from the total trajectory and everything, it was 130 feet out, 30 feet up in the air to straight down to the ground. And, at the time when I took off, I knew that this was going to go completely wrong. And until I got to the bottom, I literally just said, close your eyes. You don't want to see this.
How do you land? Do your feet hit first? What part of your body impacts, or do you even know?
So my feet hit first, and then I instantly collapse. I do a big scorpion double eject frontwards. And then the next thing is I'm just out in this black. Nothing, I don't know. Maybe it was a concussion. Maybe it was just, the amount of impact. But the impact was so devastating that I had a full bodial function discharge. So pants full of poop, bladder fully empty, just there on the ground.
Kind of like last night?
Not like last night at all. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people, looking into it more and more, they say when the human body dies, it completely discharges. And I completely discharged when I crashed that day.
So you look around, is there anybody around? How do you get help?
There's these two people that saw me crash, and the look on their face was devastating. And I just started screaming at them for help. And they definitely didn't know what was going on, and they weren't in that mindset. So I look around and there's blood everywhere. And from the impact and what I can feel in my body, I can't feel anything below my belly button. And there's blood everywhere. And I remember as a kid, I fell off a roof once. And the first thing the teacher said was, wiggle your toes. And so for some reason, that moment in my life instantaneously came to me right then. And I tried to wiggle my toes. And not only could I not wiggle them, I couldn't even tell where they were. I then reached into my pocket, grabbed the phone, and called the head coach of the ski team at the time, an individual by the name of Jim Hudson, who's like a M&M. He's got a thick candy shell, but if you can get past that candy shell, he's one of the greatest humans in the world. Called Jim, told him what came on, and then after that call, I instantaneously blacked out and kind of felt like I was hovering above my body.
When do you come to next?
Next is all of a sudden this massive rush of air where I felt like I was above my body. All of a sudden, I come flying back in and all this air comes blasting out. And what it was ski patrol. I had an air mask on me at the time. And I looked up and 3 other coaches were standing there in front of me. And the look on these 3 coaches' faces was what I imagine looks like if you see your dog get hit by a car instantaneously in front of you.
I don't have a dog, Roy.
I know, but if you did,
okay.
The look on their face was just like, and I was like, oh my God. This is really bad.
Yeah.
This is really, really bad. If I didn't make that call, Mike, I don't know if I'd be on this. I called Jim after the call ended. I then said, hovered above my body. Next thing you know, there's air on my face and there's many patrolmen around me. In the Mammoth Ski Patrol, 11 years later from that accident, still hands, hats, everything off, full applaud, screaming. Thank you guys so much.
They saved your life.
They did.
Are you in pain?
Oh my God, excruciating pain to the point where it felt like a knife was in my back, but there was something wrong because I could only feel half of it, but I could feel the whole undulations as we were going down the mountain in one of those, as they call it, coffins that the patrolmen take you down in a sled. And I knew it was bad, but as we're going down, I knew Mammoth well enough because as a coach, a kid occasionally gets hurt, you take him to the ski patrol. So I knew where ski patrol was. As we go down the mountain, we just go right by the ski patrol room. And I instantaneously get loaded into this ambulance. And Jim Hudson and his brother Bill both are there. And they're like, it's going to be okay, Roy. We'll see you soon. And down the way I went to the Mono County Lake Hospital. And in there I get, CAT scan, MRI, and the radiation specialist at the time, or the radiologist. And I'm 900% sure that you're not supposed to do this as a radiologist. Came up to me and just literally said, dude, you broke your back. You're never going to walk again. And that right there, that's devastation. That is losing your identity. That is what just happened to my life.
Are you just laying there in a room by yourself? He says that to you and you just have to try to process that?
No, it gets worse than that, Mike. So they wheel me back into this room. And all of a sudden they're cutting everything off. And I'm so concerned because I'm just still in this mindset of being a cocky kid. Don't ruin my pants. My sponsors just gave them to me. Who cares?
Yeah.
They cut my pants off. All of a sudden this guy, I can kind of feel it. I have a little sensation right around my bum area. This guy is like cleaning me. I'm like, dude, what are you doing down there? He's like, I'm just cleaning you up. I'm like, no, like, can you get away from there? I don't want you down there. And the guy's like, keeps doing it. I'm like, I asked you, will you please stop? And the guy keeps doing it. I said, sir, I've asked you 3 times now. Please stop doing what you're doing. And he looks me right in the eyes. And this is literally the realization of everything going on at this moment in my life. He looks me right in the eyes and goes, sir, there is so much poop down there that I cannot allow you to be in that much poop. You have to let me clean this up.
And that's when you realize you have
yeah, like, why did I just crap my pants? Like, what just happened to me in my life? And that 2 things really makes you just start having racing things to your head. You know, from there, they instantaneously, they put me on a code blue, which is, you know, not expecting to live. They put me on a Learjet. The Learjet left Mono Lake.
Well, how many hours is this in between the time you get hurt, from the time they tell you you're not going to walk, till you get on a Learjet going somewhere else?
1 hour.
Okay.
1 hour. So I got hurt at 9:05 a.m. on April 29th. By 10:05 a.m., I'm on a Learjet flying to what was Washoe Medical Hospital at the time, which is now known as Renown.
Okay.
And I still don't know how this is humanly possible. Jim Hudson, the head coach, who I called, he left the same time the Learjet left Mammoth. It's a 3-hour drive between Mammoth and Reno.
Mm-hmm.
It is a 50-something minute flight, 50 minutes from getting on the plane to getting off. Somehow when I showed up at the airstrip in Reno, Jim Hudson was there. He drove. Makes no sense
So he's going like 140 miles an hour.
I have no clue.
Yeah.
And so get off the thing, and then instantaneously, it was kind of like one of those, like, I don't know how to kind of explain it, but it's like one of those like sci-fi movies where I get off the plane, I'm then rushed on this gurney into this. There's lights everywhere. There's doctors checking in. Everybody's checking in. Pulses this, getting hooked up to that, getting this. And then they're like, we need to do emergency surgery right now. And I still didn't quite understand what's going on. You know, in my life, I had broken my thumb. I had torn my MCL. But nothing to this point that it's catastrophic, where all of a sudden there's numerous people literally monitoring you to ensure that you're getting the best care possible. They're like, you can make one phone call. So I called my buddy, Jesse Murphy, who had broken his neck in a mountain biking accident in Moab back in the 90s. And he was a guy that I looked up to and still look up to this day. And I said, Jesse, what should I do? He's like, well, what is the doctor saying? He's like, he says surgery now. I said, go get surgery. That led to surgery that day.
It just so happens that one of the best spine surgeons in the entire world happens to be working at that hour and is operating on you, right?
Yeah, Dr. David Lepla from the Sierra Neurosurgery Group. And with me being from Vermont, we had this weird connection. His great-great-great-grandfather was Nathaniel Chittenden, the first governor ever of the state. So all the way out in Reno, I got a little touch of Vermont right there. And he's a doctor that, you know, a lot of people say is dry, you know, doesn't...
Typical doctor.
You know, he had a little extra care, I think, that day because of the Vermont connection. And yeah, he brought me in. It was supposed to be 4.5 hours of surgery. It ended up being an 8-hour surgery. I lost so much blood during the process that they had to recirculate blood into my system. And by the time everything was said and done, they cut me open on my back. I had about a 28-inch incision, I think. It's long, goes like my whole back. It looks like a big zipper. And he put 16 screws, 2 plates, and 2 rods into my back, fusing me from the T9 vertebrae all the way down to the L3 vertebrae.
In the weeks that come after surgery, do you have any feeling in your legs, or are you fully paralyzed at this point?
When I got hurt prior to the surgery, I had no sensation, no feeling. After the surgeon came in and relieved the pressure off the spine by adding all that stabilization, I started to regain sensation in my legs. But the first day after surgery, I had no sensation or no movement. I had sensation in both legs.
And are you mentally pretty like aware of like, this is my new reality and holy shit? Or are you kind of drugged up? Are you in pain? Or,
you know, I was so drugged up on morphine the first couple days that, you know, reality wasn't possible of setting in, regardless of what I was talking about. The doctor coming in that day did tell me it was super successful surgery. And he said that, whatever I put back into my recovery, there was the potential that I could get back in motion, strength, sensation. And so I took that as, okay, let's give this 100%. And I put my hand up right then for Dr. David Leppo to slap, because a high five was just a way to exchange, gratitude towards two people. And he looked at my hand and had no idea what I was talking about. I had to literally be like, it's okay, slap my hand. And that was the first high five on my road to recovery.
Are you feeling sorry for yourself at all? I mean, you give your first high five, whatever, but you still have to be just mortified that the cool, awesome Roy Tuscany, who probably looked at himself in the mirror a lot and was just concerned with what Roy looked like more than who Roy really was. You're finding out exactly who you are at that point. That's kind of when you're at rock bottom, I would think. And, is it tears? What are you thinking at that point?
Rewind button is what I really thought about for the first couple of days. How is it possible that this could happen to me? Where's my identity? How will my identity be seen? And why can't I just hit rewind? But after the first couple of days, I started to realize that, the numbing of the pain of the morphine was probably the worst thing that was going on. So after about the third day of the injury, I just decided, I don't think I want any more of these pain pills. Or it was on a morphine drip. So every 5 seconds, the morphine drip would reload and I could push a button and get a morphine boost into the body. But after 3 days, I just said, you know what, this is not progressing. And I just decided, okay, right then and there, let's just not add any more to this problem.
I hear your therapy story as well is a little different than most, where the first physical therapist they put you with was planning on retiring that day or some story like that, but then she saw something in you and I don't know. What happened there?
I was in the ICU for about 6 days, and then I was in the neuro wing for about 3. So a total time about 9 days in the total hospital system. And I really wanted to stay close to community, and I didn't know anything about spinal cord centers like Craig Hospital in Denver or the Shepherd Center in Atlanta or Santa Clara down in California. So I decided to stay at Reno Rehab. Great facility with, a great staff of folks. And when I left, I got there on a Friday. And when you get there on a Friday, your physical therapy doesn't start till a Monday. And I got to meet the team, and one of the physical therapists was a lady by the name of Hope. And I don't think that there's any irony at all that her name was Hope, but obviously there is. And I got to meet her. And later, years later, I found out through a video that was produced about my recovery at Renown that Hope was actually scheduled to retire that Friday. And instead, she stayed on for my entire time at Reno Rehab and was my primary physical therapist and made sure that I stayed motivated and made sure that I hit goals and set goals and did things when I didn't want to. And if I was sick, didn't matter. It was, let's get to the gym and let's try to see what we can accomplish today.
And how long does it take before you realize that, hey, with this hard work and with hitting these goals, I'm actually going to be able to walk again?
I always believed.
You've got to have hope, right?
Well played. You definitely have to have hope. And with hope, you got to set goals. And the goals that I set for myself was that I wanted to return to the skiing that I was doing on April 29th, exactly 1 year from the accident date. So my motivation, along with the expertise of having a physical therapist like Hope, really helped me push my entire time that I was at Reno Rehab for 42 days. And when I left in a walker with some AFOs, ankle foot orthotics, which are plastic bracing that goes around the backside of your calf and underneath your foot so that you have stabilization there. And I was able to walk from my room out the door and into a car. And that was a huge accomplishment. That was what I set for. I wanted to walk out the doors of Reno Rehab.
Was that moment and the goal that you set, and I don't mean to minimize it or whatever, but was it like a movie where you have all the staff there watching and Roy's going to take his steps out there? And did you have any stumbles or did you make it clean?
It was definitely, a hard fight. I walked through the gym and, I really think it was, it was great at the time. But, I think it was amazing that people supported it. But you really look back on something like that and I didn't walk out of there. I assisted myself out of there. And when I left there, I had no plan. And when I left, that's when everything kind of started to get a little bit empty because I was now out in the world on my own with no identity of being a skier, no identity of being someone that was, athletic, and entering a world that I didn't know anybody. When I was at the hospital, they brought in an individual that was supposed to inspire me. And he stumbled into my room. He could kind of walk. He was in a wheelchair most of the time. But he was trying to tell me how great it was to be paralyzed in a wheelchair. And he was providing me inspiration through I could get as drunk as I want because I wouldn't have to worry about falling over because I was sitting down. I could puke on myself and people would clean it up because they would feel sorry for me. And I was totally okay to grab girls' butts because I was at the perfect height and they couldn't say anything at me. And if they did, they wouldn't slap a guy in a chair. And that was the inspiration that I was given in the world that I knew as a person with a disability.
You end up moving back to the East Coast and you go to a different rehab facility back there. And that was probably one of the worst decisions you've made in your life other than maybe not speed checking that jump that day.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely was. I looked back on it and my girlfriend at the time, my parents were going to drive her car. And the day before they were supposed to leave, the alternator blew on it. And that probably was a sign that was saying, this car shouldn't go back to the East Coast. I was going back to live at her house and then work at a facility that was located at a really small hospital in Vermont that wasn't focused around having people try to achieve goals like I had set for myself, which was to return to skiing. It was more about how can you adapt to the lifestyle now that you have a disability. And it was not what I was hoping for, and it was not an area where I felt like I could succeed. I remember my doctor, when I had a bunch of complications with my ankles, instead of trying to figure out what was going on with it, he shot thousands of cc's of Botox into my legs because he thought that my muscles were contracted, which were preventing my heels from going down. And he believed that this Botox would paralyze the muscle. And then from that, it would allow my feet to go flat, which then he thought, oh, he'll instantly walk after that. It's his feet that's causing the problem. Well, after all this Botox gets shot in my leg, it turns out that the muscles aren't the problem, that my Achilles had shortened by 2.5 inches on both legs. So no matter what we did, we could never get my foot flat. But what those Botox injections did was it killed all the potential of any muscle ever coming back below my knees. So my recovery from there instantaneously derailed because of the decision of an individual. And from that, it really started a spiral that caused a pretty dark moment in my life. From the wrong diagnosis of the Botox to then casting of my legs to then trying to buy these special boots to then just never trying to solve the problem, but just trying to mask the problem.
You say you got to a dark time in your life or a dark thing. What are you talking about there?
I was going to this gym for a while, the River Valley Club, which was a phenomenal facility. And people had raised all this money for me so that I could afford to go to personal training, gym memberships, massage, acupuncture, all these different, modalities of healing. So that was great. But my problems that I had with my ankles, I started to develop pressure sores on my feet, which are basically large cuts that start to bore in towards the bone. And those are what can kill a person with a disability because there's no blood circulation getting to there. And those wounds can get big enough to the point where they cause many harmful things to the body. And so I'm going to this club and luckily I meet this guy by the name of Wayne Burwell at the time. He's this amazing personal trainer, energy through the roof, just one of the kindest souls you could ever meet. And he's also, I think he has like 0% body fat. He is just yoked to the world. Well, at the point after, pressure sores, wrong diagnosis, Botox, casting, in and out of wheelchair, failing at walking, my girlfriend at the time breaks up with me and I move back in with my parents. And I just decide there's no reason to live. And I just, start drinking every day, but I'm still going to this gym down at this facility where Wayne is. And he starts to recognize that I'm showing up alone. I don't have as much motivation. And he personally, the guy charges hundreds of dollars of hours to personally train with him. And there's a waiting list for years to get with him. He sees what's going on in my life, but he never talks about it. It's not like he's like, hey, what happened to your girlfriend? Why do you smell like booze? Why aren't you motivated? Instead, he just says, okay, here's your schedule. What do you mean, here's my schedule? Well, here's when you're working out with me. And Wayne personally trains me for 3 months after all these ordeals go. And Wayne literally saved my life. He put me on my first goal setting schedule post, just deciding like there's no reason to live. And so I would show up every single day. And from there, it really allowed me to start saying, okay, like I can see positive gains if I stay on this regimented schedule. And Wayne, literally was the person who really set me up to make sure that I wasn't going to fail in life.
Well, you've had a lot of people in your life that have set you up for good things. I mean, there's a lot of people that you've said already in the interview that have had huge impacts. And I think the next one, you decide to move back to Truckee or wherever you move, or back to the Tahoe area. You meet Ladd Williams, and I don't know who introduces you to him, but from what I've heard from a lot of the athletes in the Squaw Valley area, like, this is a guy who's like a spiritually on another level, and he can inspire and put such a positive energy into people that they can do things that they didn't think possible. And while I might think that's weird at times, those kind of things, what was your experience with him?
Ladd gifted me the ability to heal, and he also opened the door to my relationship with CR. CR in December of 2005 suffered his head injury when he was on a photo shoot. April of 2006, I got hurt. And then in December, at the very end of December 2006, I moved back to Tahoe, and CR is, doing physical therapy with Ladd. And, we all know how much of an amazing recovery CR had from his initial head injury. And I believe a lot of that came from not just the physical therapy side, but also the spiritual side that Ladd puts into his physical therapy sessions.
So you work with Ladd, and he helps you where, the guy in the East Coast is helping you physically and getting your body in shape. Ladd is more getting into your head and shifting the way you're thinking, as well as providing some physical stuff.
Yeah, Ladd was doing the opposite of what was happening at that small hospital in Vermont. He wasn't trying to mask the problem. He was constantly trying to solve the problem. How can we get your ankles to move? How can we get you moving dynamically? How can we get you strengthening not just one side, but both sides? So it wasn't so much about like masking it. It was more about, okay, let's figure out the problem and then let's look at the solutions. Ladd really put so much energy. I was spending over 40 hours a week at his physical therapy.
Your goal is to go ski again. And how long does that take? From the time that you're hurt to Vermont to back to Tahoe, how long does it take for you to get back on the hill?
From working with Ladd, it was diagnosed that I needed to get Achilles lengthening surgery. So I had to go through 2 major surgeries to lengthen my Achilles, then the recovery process of both of those. And then also making sure that I don't lose any of the muscle mass that I had built up from working with Wayne, and also my flexibility and just, my overall body's quality of life. So for 2 straight years, all I did was focus on recovery and rehab. And then in April of 2008, I decided to try to go skiing again.
Has the High Fives Foundation started yet?
No, we have come up with an idea. Me and my buddy decided that we want to throw an event to celebrate me returning to snow.
Okay, so that's how the High Fives Foundation kind of starts, is the idea of you're going to go get on skis again. It's been 2 years. You're going to get back on snow. You're going to throw an event around it. You remember the high five that you gave the doctor, and it's been like the only positive thing. You're boozing this whole time, right?
Yeah, very heavily. A lot of drinking and a lot of just not taking the best care of myself.
Does an event actually happen, or is it more of an idea?
No, so event happens. The event was called High Fives, and it was a 540 contest. It was at Sugar Bowl, and it was an absolute amazing time. And that was kind of the catalyst to what are we doing with this and how can we make it bigger? Everybody that attended the event that day, we had chicken wings being cooked on the grill. We had T-shirts made. We had, this whole look of being it kind of like a luau with green artificial grass and tiki torches and 540s and handmade trophies and all these cool things happening. Everyone's like, well, you guys should put on events all the time, and that's what you should do. So we started this idea that we were going to make this events boutique company, this company that would provide events and a boutique lifestyle to events in the Tahoe area. But then it was like, well, if we're going to do that, we need to have a purpose behind it. And then we decided to start looking around for a nonprofit, and there just wasn't a nonprofit that was doing what people did for me. And I just decided, instead of making this event boutique company, let's make a nonprofit with a purpose, because I knew what folks did for me from Vermont and Tahoe, where they raised over $85,000 for myself so I could focus on recovery. I knew that other people would fall into the same shoes as me, but I didn't know if they'd have the same community around them like I did. So I just decided, well, why don't we just do exactly what everyone did for me and try to do it for others?
You start this nonprofit foundation. You have some CO3540-64. That means you get some tax thing. I don't know what that means.
501c3.
Okay. You get set up in that respect. And this is early on. You're probably just throwing a few events a year and trying to build this thing, figuring out how sponsorship works on a real level with these brands, what you can write off, what you can't, being a nonprofit, all the details that go around doing what you're doing, you're figuring out. And over the years, tell us the highlights of the High Fives Foundation as the years have gone on, because you've been around, 9 years now?
Yeah, so the first event we threw was in 2008, and then in 2009, we filed with the Secretary of State of California and became a legitimate 501c3 nonprofit. The foundation, in its first year, we threw a couple events. I mean, I talk about it a lot now as we've grown as a foundation. The first event we ever did, we got $1 off of PBRs, a local bar. Made $187 that night, and that was huge.
The thing that you did that was great was you took something that was very popular, the high five. You associate it with a story that's very impactful, life-altering injuries on the mountain. And eventually your events became more so fundraising to be able to get these athletes back into the world like you've been able to do.
So in 2009, launched the foundation and then gave our first grant in 2010 to Steve Wallace, athlete number 1, who now works for the organization as the program manager and also makes sure that all the athletes we support feel supported. An amazing human. And we launched in 2010 by getting him back to skiing. He got hurt in a ski accident and his goal was to get back to skiing. So High Fives from the money that we had raised from events went towards helping Steve, and we got him back skiing, got him lessons, got him, gym memberships, pool memberships, so that he could focus the most that he could on getting back to skiing, which was his goal.
Over the years, how many athletes have you helped?
We've helped 167 athletes from 31 states across the country.
You do a ton of events. The beauty of it is you are the best auctioneer in the world, in my opinion. I love hearing you auction, as last night was phenomenal. But you can run a lot of these events and fundraisers because you have that skill. And over the years, how much have you spent on the athletes?
This year in 2017, we will be giving out close to $450,000 in athlete grants.
Yeah, but it's so much more impressive if you tell me over the years how much you have done. Because hundreds of thousands, I want you to say, we've granted $3.4 million. It sounds so much better.
I believe over the time period of the organization, I believe we have granted just shy of $2 million.
That's pretty impactful. And there's a lot of areas that need to raise money. And you can see it in sports. There's the pink month in football that everybody knows and expects. With the brands that we work with who put people's lives on the line at all times if they have anyone that they consider an athlete, it's one of those things that you'd think they'd want to integrate something like this because it's cool. It works with great athletes. It's authentic. It's all the buzzwords that people say. So I figure at some point you'll partner with a brand and have a lot more money to do a lot more things with. But over this time in your life, you get married at some point, and you don't have to tell me your love story because it ends. But the divorce thing that happened 10 months ago, is that a rocky point in your life? Because I believe you're drinking at an all-time high and your life's spiraling out of control on the personal side, but on the professional side, you are just crushing it.
From a professional standpoint, everything looked like it was great. But also, my personal life was affecting a lot of the professional side as well. But it literally could have ended my life the way that I was treating myself. I was gastrically overweight. I was drinking what I thought was totally acceptable. But now after a year of being sober, it is mind-blowing that I didn't take my life or take the life of someone else's from making really bad decisions.
How many drinks would you have on a flight or a travel day?
If I got to the airport early enough, I'd have anywhere from 2 to 4 shots, 2 to 4 beers in the morning, and then off we'd go.
Were you drinking all day, every day? Because I would see you once a year for about 4 days, and given those 4 days, people were throwing down, they were drinking, so it didn't seem like anything was out of the ordinary to me. When I see you on the road, it didn't seem like there was that much drinking going on, but I guess there could have been. I don't know, but there were a lot of meetings as well.
There was a go time and a stop time. When work was going, it was focused on work, and that was my addiction, was work. And then as soon as work would shut off, I would then turn myself to everything possible to not be healthy. Eating terrible food, drinking absurd amounts, and just allowing that to shut off the work mind. Because I couldn't shut off my work mind was the biggest problem. My constant mind was just rolling and rolling and rolling. And when I get done work, the only way to shut it off was to try to drink as much as possible.
And that was normal for your marriage at that point? It was just what was going to happen when you came home?
I can only talk about myself. And for me, I was more concerned about shutting my mind off than I was about anything else.
So your marriage ends and You're walking down the street, you see each other, you're going to high five or you're going to ignore each other? What's going to happen?
We'll probably just acknowledge each other.
That is what it is. So you're spiraling out of control. You get divorced. Eventually you meet Bailey, who is a breath of fresh air in your world, as you've known her for a long time, but eventually, you probably lose connection, see each other again. You've always known her family, but see each other again and realize that she's not a kid anymore. This is a full-on adult. And you guys click, come together. And how has she impacted your life? Because you don't drink anymore. You do drink. You drink vinegar in the morning. You came here to my house and I'm like, we're going to eat cheeseburgers and have a good time, because you might not do that when you go home.
She has just allowed me to find other means to shut off my mind. By not drinking, that led to a bunch of exercise, to an addiction to spin class. I love going to spin class. I love going to those. They can shut my mind off and work through things in my mind while that. She makes me healthy. She just literally came in and was an angel for me at a point in my life where I probably needed an angel.
How much weight have you lost since you quit drinking to now?
28 pounds.
Your injury, you walk for sure. You have a style of walking per se, and carrying another 40 pounds or 30 pounds and drinking every day can't be good. You used to get hurt all the time. You'd break a leg here or do something here because you weren't treating yourself well, and the weight had something to do with it too.
Yeah, my body was just unhealthy. I wasn't giving myself the best platform. And ever since this weight's come off, ever since I've really gotten back into fitness, I have been able to start having a much better quality of life because of the mobility opportunities that I have. I'm not carrying the extra weight. I have better muscle structure. And probably from that, I have better bone structure as well. So a big thing for me has been my health. And that's been my major focus for the last year, as long as that's just what I needed to do.
Soon your major focus is going to be getting married, maybe a honeymoon, and then back to the grind again. I would think of making sure that you're raising money for a lot of different people and impacting people's lives. And the trips you go on are ridiculous. That's one thing we didn't talk about. I mean, while you probably aren't getting rich with the High Fives Foundation, you're getting rich in terms of experiences. I mean, you're hanging with NFL guys. You're hanging with race car drivers. You're going to Hawaii. What are the top few moments of your time at the High Fives, other than seeing somebody experience something that changes their life?
I've been super blessed. So many people ask me all the time, would you trade this in? Obviously, I'd love to go run again. I'd love to have all the attributes of the physical body that I had prior to my injury. But what I've gotten to experience, I never would have gotten to experience. I get to talk to kids about being positive role models. I get to meet individuals like Dave Vabora, who started a foundation to help critically wounded veterans, return them and help redefine their life. And from there, we've created a military return to snow program called Military to the Mountains, where we take critically wounded veterans, put them through 9 weeks of personal training, and then provide 1 week of skiing and snowboarding at Squaw Valley. We've brought 33 individuals through the program. Well, we've provided 33 experiences and had 28 individuals. We've had a couple return that have come back and start to act as mentors. I've gotten to meet Joey Logano, my favorite NASCAR driver, the number 22 car.
Cole Trickle, man.
Cole Trickle. Yep, Cole Trickle, the 46, and you got to watch out for the 51 of Rowdy Burns.
Fuck Rowdy Burns.
Cole drove that mellow yellow to the Daytona 500 victory for him.
And I hate Russ Wheeler, too.
I got to meet Joey Logano through the work with his foundation. His foundation gives second chances to young adults, and it really partners up well with what we do at High Fives. Working with Joey has been a great thing. I've also gotten to go to Hawaii and teach people the sport of surfing and get to teach it to myself and get to show people the power of the ocean. Our adaptive surf camps have been some of the most amazing, memorable times in seeing folks go past the comfort zone of what is expected by going into the ocean, catching waves, and then how the outcome of catching that wave propels them. And recently I heard a quote, and it's a quote that I really think really helps define how to redefine or how to re-identify yourself after suffering a critical injury so that the mental health space stays as possibly positive as possible, which is that by giving the gift of surfing, you give individuals to start thinking about the wave report tomorrow. And if individuals are thinking about the wave report tomorrow, then they're not going to end today. And that right there is something that I feel we've been able to bless so many people with in the adaptive community is the sport of surfing. We've also got to do that with fly fishing with a great partnership with Access Unlimited up in Montana. We've also done it with rock climbing and alpine skiing with the U.S. Paralympic team.
The question was more about what's the most baller thing that you've done being part of the High Fives Foundation? Because you guys get to do a lot of cool stuff.
I would say the other day at Texas Motor Speedway, myself and another athlete got to sit on the pit box wall while cars were going by us at 200 miles per hour. That right there was just, are you kidding me? How did I get this seat? I'm sitting on the wall of the pit box while a car goes by us at 200 miles an hour from, the distance you and I are sitting from each other. It was me, Kevin Trimble, one of our military athletes, and then Dave and his wife, and then the executive director from ATF. I mean, what an experience. What a seat. You can't buy that seat. There's just, it's not given to people. It's gifted to people that get to live the life of helping others.
Well, Roy, your whole life has not been about helping others. Only the second half of it's been. It's like the first half is all about you. And then when you realized that it was time to care about others, you became a better person. Unfortunately, it took a life-altering injury for that to happen. But one of the best people I know, I'm glad I didn't know the asshole Roy. I'm glad I do know the great Roy, and look forward to your wedding and all other things as well.
Oh, Mike, thank you so much. I also would like everyone to know that I am the first person ever to sleep in the studio and then do the podcast the next day.
So that was time with Roy Tuscany, and a great friend of mine, and also a really great story. Like I said in the podcast, I'm glad I didn't get to know the asshole Roy, because the person he is now and the way he is selfless and the way that he looks to help others is really something that I admire, not something I could ever aspire to be. But it sounds like when you have one of those life-altering injuries, it really changes your outlook on just about everything, and I guess that's common sense, but it really turns people into better people, and it's a shame that they weren't great people before the injuries, but whatever, that is life. Next week on the show, I'm excited to have the biggest guest we have ever had. Now, he's not the biggest skier or snowboarder that we've ever had, nor biggest athlete at all, because he's not an athlete. He is a musician. He is Jeff Ament, the bass player for Pearl Jam and a founding member of Pearl Jam, and not only is he an incredible musician, but he is a diehard skateboarder who loves to snowboard. He's been out in the mountains with Doug Coombs, and we talk about a whole bunch of amazing stories. So that's Jeff Ament next week to kick off Season 2 on January 1st. As always, I need to thank you for listening to the show. And I also need to thank my amazing sponsors. They are evo.com, diecutstickers.com, Sierra at Tahoe Resort, Rescue Water, and Unofficial Networks. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you had a very Merry Christmas and you all got amazing gear to take out and play in the mountains. And I will talk to you next week with Jeff Ament.